Let me introduce 𝗀𝗃𝗿𝗀𝗀 from Pure Travel Group. Is going to educate us today on pure travel in Ecuador. So 𝗀𝗃, take it away.
Thank you, Reese, and hi, everybody. That's correct. My name is 𝗀𝗃𝗿𝗀𝗀. I'm here in Ecuador myself, Quito, wonderful city in the Andes, and I'll take you by your hand through this wonderful country. Hopefully, some of you have already been here, others have probably not, but there's a common interest to learn a little bit more. So in case you have any questions, queries, or comments, please, you can put them always in the box or just open your mic and let me know. This is an interactive webinar for everybody, so let's make it interactive. So anyone who has something to say is welcome to open his mic. So here we are with Pure Travel Group. Most of you guys already know us. We are a DMC here in South America working exclusively to the B2B market. So we only serve to US travel agents, travel advisors, operators, wholesalers, and also the MICE segment for the incentive houses and meeting planners. So here we work with local teams in each of our destinations. This is a Pure Travel Group. That means that we are a group of companies, all belong to the same brand. We're all Pure, but we have destination management companies in Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. Plus, we have some contracts with the Antarctica vessels as well, just to help you out on the Antarctica issues. Well, now we are talking about Ecuador and merely Ecuador. We can be completely white labeled, which is very important, and we are a sustainable company, which is also something that a lot of people ask us about. And this is not something that has popped up after COVID. No, for us, sustainability is from the roots. It's from the very beginning, back in 2002, that we actually have sustainability implemented in our company. So I can say that we are kind of leaders in that area. Okay, let's see. Let's take you to Ecuador. Ecuador, you will have, if you've been to our Colombia webinar, you've seen how we put these presentations together. We always put cut the country into pieces or into regions to make it a little more easier to understand where we are. So the 4 worlds of Ecuador, and that's also what Ecuador uses for their marketing, is the Pacific Coast, the Andes, the Amazon, and of course, the world famous Galapagos Islands. So for me personally, I think Ecuador actually has 5 worlds. If we take the cloud forests as well, which are on the slopes of the Andes, where the Andes goes down towards either the coastal region or the Amazon basin, you have a piece of those slopes they're called the cloud forest, where you have a unique megadiversity of flora and fauna, truly different again than when you go to the Amazon. And we'll go back to that later on to show you a little bit on the differences between these different regions. Oh, wait a minute. It's not doing something correctly here. There we go. So where is Ecuador? Ecuador is this little mini tiny green dot here in South America. As you see, we're south of Colombia and north of Peru, huge countries with a lot to see, and you'll see that in our webinars as well. But Ecuador, being so small, is hardly what people think, like, hey, wait a minute, is Ecuador actually interesting, that small, tiny country? I'd rather go to a huge country, and probably there's way more to see in that country than to go to Ecuador, and that's an error. So here you will see from this webinar or from this presentation that Ecuador actually has everything that has South America. It's like South America in a nutshell, or so to say. And that's the uniqueness of Ecuador. It's megadiversity and everything is so close by. Wait a minute. So here we have the country. As you see, the Amazon basin is almost half of the continent. Then we have the Andean mountains going from north to south. It's just one mountain range that we have in Ecuador, not like the 3 mountain ranges in Colombia. So out of Colombia, you have the 3 ranges, and they come all together to cross Ecuador as one and the same mountain range. Then we have the coastal region, and of course, about 600 miles or 1,000 kilometers offshore, we have the Galapagos Islands. These are the Galapagos Islands, and there's also a separate part of this presentation goes about the Galapagos. Okay, so I'm in Quito. Quito is the capital, 2,850 meters. It's about, what is it, 17,000 feet? I'm not really sure. Pretty high up, no problems with altitude sickness. We're on the equator, right in the center of the world. We have the US dollar, so this is a dollarized country. We do not have our own currency anymore. 17 million people, and it's very easy to come around in Ecuador, as you don't have to get that currency difference in mind and all the time having to calculate how much things cost. Now, why visit Ecuador? Ecuador has the most biodiversity per square kilometer than any other nation, and that's what I started with, and that's also what I want you to feel during this presentation, and that's the essence of Ecuador. So it really becomes a fantastic destination for family travel, for instance, as there's no long stretches. We have more species of plants than the entire North America, including Mexico. Ecuador is home over 1/6 of the world's bird species. So also for the birders among us, or the bird watchers among us, Ecuador is one of the hotspots for birding. And then we have the Galapagos Islands and the city of Quito, who both are heritages by UNESCO declared, by UNESCO. And Quito, by the way, is actually the first one declared in the world by the UNESCO. Has to be said, it's together with Krakow in Poland, but those 2 cities were the first 2 cities in the world to be declared patrimony or World Heritage by UNESCO. And that's not just because. We have recognized the rights for nature as a first country. Our old town is the best preserved in Latin America. That's Quito's old town. And of course, everybody has read The Theory of Evolution from Darwin, which is based on our Galapagos Islands. And then just a little other fact, and the fun fact is the summit of our highest mountain, which is the Chimborazo, is actually the point closest to the sun on Earth. Yes, so you're closer to the sun than when you're on Mount Everest. Now, how to get to Ecuador? We have 2 international airports. One is Quito, and the other one is Guayaquil in the south, in the coastal areas. Ways of transportation, it's just how you like it to be. We craft the experiences and we tailor the services around your clients' needs, whether they'd like to go as these guys here in a private jet helicopter and make a yacht, we'll get that done. If they just want to do things a little bit more normal, or so to say, we get that done as well. So with Pure, there's not a minimum spend. There's not a minimum days. You do not have a minimum daily expenditure per person whatsoever. You don't have to go to 4 or 5 stars hotels with us. We have a policy that says that everybody has a right to travel organized. And organized means through a travel agent and having the backup of a DMC in country and feeling safe. And that's what we guarantee as a company here. So here we are in Quito. Quito is this wonderful city. It's spread in this valley, and here we have our Virgin Mary overlooking this vast and extensive historic center of Quito. So the whole area here is part of the historic center of Quito. Then we have the district in the north, which is more the financial district, where we also have the larger hotels, so like the Marriotts, the Hiltons, the Sheratons, they're all in this area. And then you have the nicer boutique smaller hotels in the old town of Quito. So actually the old town of Quito is a place where you would like to stay and where you'd like your clients or your guests to stay in Quito, because this is where you have that feeling of being in an old historic center of one of our, well, in this case, city of one of our cities in South America. Some cities are not as good to stay in old towns, like for instance Bogota or Lima, but Quito is totally different. Quito is actually fantastic to be here and stay and have a hotel in the historical center. So in the north, this is like our more financial district, where we have like the high-rise buildings and our central park here in Quito as well, which is a great place in weekends to also see the locals doing their sports. And actually our local sport in Ecuador is not football, it's not soccer, it's actually volleyball. And that's what you're going to see here in this place amongst the locals. And don't be afraid that they'll actually ask you to join for a play of volleyball. Aquavolley it is. It's not international volleyball. Anyway, here we have in our historical center different churches, convents, squares. There's so much to see, so much to visit. Of course, a city tour is a city tour in every city. We try to make it a city tour a little bit more personalized. So whenever we have the information about your clients, about their interests, their special interests, their hobbies, or what they do, we can actually get all that information and create some separate visits during a city tour that makes a city tour not a standard city tour, but something special. And that's what Pure is about, to create those special moments and those special experiences. Here we are with also the Plaza San Francisco, one of the convents. As you see, it's a beautiful setting, beautiful scenery. And of course, we have the Equator Monument, which is also fantastic for families, for kids to learn about the equator and how the world actually turns. Cooking classes, experiences, hands-on experiences, doing it yourself. We don't like too much those moments that people just sit down and watch others to do things. We like you to do the things. Of course, gastronomy. The gastronomy in Ecuador is not as known as the Peruvian gastronomy. However, the Ecuadorian gastronomy probably is will be in a couple of years at the same kind of vibe, hopefully, and trend, as truly the gastronomy here in Ecuador is unique, and it varies from region to region. So there's a lot to taste and to smell. Special moments here as well for couples, or if you'd like to see any of the traditional dancings, etc. So Quito is actually a country or a city that's right in the center of the country, and we'll tell that later to you how actually I always call it like a spider web around Quito, with all the options that you have for either daily visits or to extend your stay out of Quito with another night somewhere else. Just to use some of the hotels that we have here, Il Experience, really 12 room, nice boutique style hotel. The Casa Gangoten, this actually is not, this is the Plaza Grande, this is the Il Experience, I'm sorry. This is the Il Experience, wonderful place, the 12 rooms. Casa Gangotena, which is a Relais Chateau hotel as well in the center. Rumi Loma, which is on the slopes. And then we have Plaza Grande, which is another very nice hotel in the old town of Ecuador, of Quito. And then we have the spiderweb, as I was telling you. And the spiderweb is just also for those who have a group and you want to have Quito as your base camp and then do day excursions around it, is very well possible. Out of Quito, going to the west, we have Mindo, which is already the cloud forest. I explained about the biodiversity. Cloud forest is is bird life, but also the orchids. It's nature and nature over the top. And this is just at 1.5 hours, 2 hours drive from Quito. Easily done as well on a day trip. In the north, we have 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗀, which is completely different. It's an indigenous town with a market, but also the lakes that we have there, the music that they have there in the north. I'll tell that later on a little more. It's also 1 hour, 45 minutes drive out of Quito. And then to the east, we have 𝗶𝘀𝗃𝗃, which is this hot thermal spring complex in the Andes, overlooking the snow-stopped mountain of Antisana. Fantastic also to just relax, have a good massage, and spend some time in these thermal pools. Just 45 minutes to 1 hour out of Quito. Then to the south of Quito, 1.5 hour drive, you're at the 𝘀𝗶𝘀𝗃 National Park, which is another complete different scenery. This is the highest active snow-capped volcano in the world, with its national park around it. Great for some hiking, for some mountain biking, for horseback riding. There are some haciendas as well, and I'll tell that later on how that works. And this also just 1.5 hours. So anyone who's interested in either nature, culture, relaxation, wellness, it's all around Quito. So you can go, come back to your home in Quito, or stay a night or 2 nights anywhere in these places around Quito. So just to give some impressions with what I just said, this is 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗀. So this is like the indigenous market. These are the indigenous people of Ecuador. And we can tell from their dressings where they're from. And they use their dress not for touristic purposes. They use it because that's how they dress every single day. These are other different dresses. They look alike, but this is from a village called Zuleta. We can do the workshops, the embroidery workshops. There are some cheese factories as well. There's a lot of roses. Ecuador, if you think about Ecuador, you have to think about roses. The Ecuadorian roses are actually among the best roses in the world. The Ecuadorian cacao, and now as well the chocolate, is actually the best cacao, and I'd say the best chocolate in the world as well. The shrimp, that's another export product that we have. Bananas, huge bananas here, and huge exporter of bananas that we have here. So there's also a lot to do with the economics. So always what we want to have our clients is to understand the country. So if they come and visit a country, they better learn what the country is about and what our economy drives. So here we can do a visit to rose farms, etc. This is the 𝘀𝗃𝗃𝗃, as I said, a complete different scenery, 5,879 meters altitude, the highest snow-capped volcano in the world. This is active volcano, and you'll probably see it if it's a nice sky as it's today. You have the 𝘀𝗃𝗃𝗃 out of Quito, and you can see that perfectly shaped cone standing out there with some fumaroles above it. It's fantastic. It's not dangerous. It's fantastic. We can do a flight over the 𝘀𝗃𝗃𝗃 as well. Here, for instance, the horseback riding in the national park. You have these special places, which is actually original Inca walls here around this very nice table. Here we can either organize a lunch or a dinner for a small group or family, and you'll actually be in this chapel, which is built around by the Incas, and it's an original Inca setting. It is also a hotel, actually. And then we have the 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗀, which is a crater lake, as you can see here. Fantastic. Also for those hikers among us, the soft adventurers who like a more strenuous hike around this rim, 6 hours, but beautiful views to do. We can also just do the visit and walk down towards the lake and go up by horses for those who do not want to hike too much. So there's really something for everybody here in this area. And then the cloud forest, lush vegetation, primary cloud forests, and of course, all those activities that you probably think of if you think, well, Costa Rica, maybe. Well, that's what we have here in Ecuador in the cloud forest as well. This zip linings, all these bikes over the zip lines, or these weird inventions trying to keep you on the same level as the canopy to see the different kind of animals and birds that live on that altitude of the forest. Of course, we can also help you with certain healings, the wellness aspects nowadays. It's getting more and more important for people, and they'd like to have this slow-paced travel or have a really true immersive and energetic encounter with the locals. So some of the properties that we have here in the cloud forest, it's the Mashpee Lodge. Near Otavalo, we have this Hacienda Zuleta, which is another jewel around the Andes, or La Mirage, which is another different option that we can give you. So now, leave Quito behind and we go to the Amazon. Ecuador's Amazon is one of the easiest to reach Amazon. Some people don't even think of Ecuador when they think of Amazon. They think, hey, that's Brazil. You have to go to Brazil to get to the Amazon. No, the Amazon actually you can visit out of Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Brazil. So here in Ecuador, we have half of our country is the Amazon basin. So we have the upper Amazon and the lower Amazon. And actually the upper Amazon, which is more adjacent to the Andes, you can actually drive through to. It's a 3.5-hour stunning drive out of Quito, going down the Andes, crossing the cloud forest, and then getting into the upper Amazon. The other one, the lower Amazon, you actually fly to out of Quito towards a town called Coca, and from there you take the dugout canoes to the lodges or your river cruise. The differences are, and here we go, this. So the secondary forest, that's more the upper Amazon. So the upper Amazon, as you drive to, that's where people live. And where people live, unfortunately, animals have been either scarced away or have been eaten. So it's harder to find those animals, that wildlife, in the upper Amazon than in the lower Amazon. The lower Amazon is virgin primary rainforest with all the wildlife you need. However, the secondary forest is very interesting also for families. It's more cultural interaction. So some do actually prefer the secondary forest to the primary rainforest, as most of the excursions in the primary rainforest are all the same. You go on your wildlife hike on your early morning birding tour, and then you go and you do the kayaking to see a lot of things in the lower Amazon. The upper Amazon has some more activities like the rafting. We have the rapids. It's the river comes still with quite a current down from the Andes. So it's a completely different activities and different experience that you have in these two different Amazon regions, or so to say. So there's something for everybody, depending on their interest and what their expectations. So here we have the upper Amazon. With the rafting, as I said, you do see some of the wildlife, especially in sanctuaries. There's more interaction with the local people, the Quechua indigenous people. They'll show us how they do their Quechua, their chicha drinks, their textiles or their jewelry from the Amazon, and of course the wellness part. We can never forget about that. So there's a couple of lodges here. We just highlight one. And then we go to the lower Amazon, which is more the hardcore Amazon experience, as I always say. So this is where you have the Amazon feeling of being all alone on this planet, nobody around. The waters are already black water, so it's not the same white water as in the upper Amazon. And you can put your hand in the water and you won't see your hand anymore. That's how black the water is. Here we have these stunning lodges, and everything is included. So here you have your native guide, your translator, all your food, all your excursions, everything is part of the package, or so to say. usually 4 or 5 days, 3 or 4 nights. That's what you need to visit the lower Amazon. And that's also something that in the upper Amazon, you just need like 2 nights and you have that good feeling of having seen it. For the lower Amazon, you need an additional night. So the excursions are by this dugout canoe. And of course, you don't have to row yourself. There will be guides doing that for you. And then some of the lodges that we have these splendid other activities or add-on or added values, if you wish, like the canopy towers. This is a 300-meter canopy tower, walking over the canopy of the forest to see the different animals on that level. And of course, also here you have a community visit, different community than the Quichuas, again, a complete other culture, really. And there we go. Then we have the different lodges. This is one which is 𝘀𝗲𝗰𝗂𝗋 Lodge. We have 𝘂𝗶 Wildlife Center. This is something interesting. What 𝘂𝗶 Wildlife Center is actually the only lodge located on the southern bench of the 𝘂𝗶 River. The big river that we saw is the 𝘂𝗶, and that's where most of the lodges are located. But then all lodges are located on the northern side of this river, except for this one. This is the only one on the southern side, and this is inside the National Park of Yasuní. So this is actually more exclusive, if you wish, than the others. And this is also, and that's a big plus for us, it's community owned. As a sustainable company, we always prefer to use those lodges or hotels that are either locally or community owned. Then we have the 𝘁 Lodge. This works. It's another fantastic lodge. Everything runs super smoothly there. And then we have 2 river cruises. And this is also something that you see in, for instance, Peru. You know, Iquitos, and out of Iquitos, you have all these fantastic vessels going to where the Amazon River starts. Here you have 2 vessels, which is the Anaconda and the Manatee, doing the same kind of expedition. You sleep on board this vessel, and then you make daily excursions in the different areas that you pass through. So it's a very nice way to explore the Amazon as well. And it's also good if people like to go on boats. You have a boat in the Amazon, and you have a boat in the Galapagos. Okay, now we take you back to the Andes, back up. Here we are in Quito, and then from Quito we go all the way down to our other UNESCO World Heritage city, Cuenca. This is the Avenue of the Volcanoes, as it says here, and it's how it's called. So here you could come across a lot of volcanoes, yes. And besides the volcanoes, you have the local indigenous communities. We have national parks. We have local markets. There's really a lot going on this little stretch. And I say little stretch because if you see Quito Cotopaxi just an hour and a half, then going to Riobamba 2 hours more, towards Ingapirca 3 hours more, and then Cuenca an hour and a half. So this is like what is it, 8-hour drive from Quito to Cuenca. But this we will actually do in like 3 days, 2 nights, 4 days, 3 nights, and cut it up in pieces. And usually this is for instance, a stretch which is totally normal if you go from the Titicaca Lake to Cusco, for instance, in Peru. That's what you do. Here you have it in 4 days or in 3 days. So you have way more time to see things, to explore things, to be with people and among people, than sitting in a car and driving from A to B on very long stretches. And that's what Ecuador is about. And that's why it's also such a great destination for families. As with your youngsters, you don't want them to sit 10 hours in a car or in a bus to get to your next place. So this is what you're going to see a bit in this Avenue of the Volcanoes. So here you have like the Cotopaxi, you have these haciendas, and the haciendas are these working farmhouses, and they're refurbished into hotels, very uniquely done and intimate. It's where you can explore and help them with their cheese factories, or help them milking a cow, or help them with their rose plantations, or whatever these haciendas do besides their tourism income. they do something else. And that's really, really nice of Ecuador, to have and stay in these different haciendas. And these haciendas are everywhere. So they're from the north in 𝘀𝗏𝗏 all the way to the south near Cuenca. You still have haciendas. On the coast, you have haciendas near Guayaquil. So you can actually make very nice kind of agritourism ID to it as well, but also the flair of haciendas gives a special touch, and the experience or all the adventure that you do during the day continues during the night, and that makes it a complete trip. Now we have Baños, which is another nice place, tropical setting, and then you get all of a sudden to this highest point of Ecuador, the Chimborazo mountain, with the vicuñas. So it's a complete different landscape all of a sudden. Unfortunately, this is no longer running anymore. This was our train. There are some ideas of getting it back. Hopefully it will be back on track soon, but there's no news about that yet. And then we have our Inca ruins, and then you say Inca, but that's Peru. You know, the Incas have also been to Ecuador. They have been here, not as long as they've been in Peru, but they have done here their jobs on creating some of the Inca ruins. And as I said, also near the Cotopaxi, which is the northernmost found Inca place, where you still have original Inca walls, complete and intact. So on your way, you can stay at these kind of haciendas, these kind of farmhouses, really nice. Spa resorts, you name it, it's all there for all budgets. And then you get to Cuenca. And Cuenca is another UNESCO World Heritage. And Cuenca is actually one of those places which is within the top 10 lists for Americans to come and retire. It's this very laid back, very nice, tranquil city with great restaurants, nice squares. It's just, if you walk around this town, it's like, I want to stay here. And that's what a lot of people did. So good museums. This is where you have the Panama hats. I shouldn't call them Panama hats, because these hats that everybody know as Panama hats are actually not from Panama. They're from Ecuador, and they've been exported from Ecuador to Panama when they dug out that canal, and with the sun and the heat, they needed some hats, and our president in that time gave them all these hats, and they were then known as the Panama hats, but they're all from Ecuador. And that's what you can see here as well in Cuenca, the weaving of our paja toquilla, sombrero de paja toquilla. That's how it's called now. It's a bit more difficult than Panama hat. Our Cajas National Park, 4,000 meters just outside of Cuenca, great for some hikings, over 400 lakes that you have here. If you want to go camp out in the altitude, that's also possible. What I said, gastronomy in Cuenca, fantastic cooking classes, or having it served for you, it's all there. And then also, there's actually some wine here in Ecuador. And you say, wine on the equator? Wait a minute, that can't be true. And that's true. It shouldn't be able to grow some wine here in Ecuador, but I've actually done the impossible. We have two wineries in Ecuador. One is a bit more commercial, and they really, really grow some fantastic wine. So we can also do, for those wine lovers, we can do actually a local wine tasting from local Ecuadorian wines. And of course, well, there you go with some more hats and the artworks that are everywhere you pass through. Some hotels in Cuenca, some nice arts, boutiques hotels that we've highlighted here for you, just as an impression. And then we can actually drive down in 4 hours from Cuenca towards the coastal area to Guayaquil. Guayaquil is the biggest city of Ecuador, and it also has its international airport. So here you can either say, well, I do like a very nice Avenue of the Volcanoes from Quito to Guayaquil, and then I fly home and I have a very beautiful stay. Or from Guayaquil, you have the airport and flights to Galapagos. So you can actually then also extend your stay in Ecuador to go to the Galapagos. Guayaquil is at the moment not as good in the news. We all know what news is around there about Ecuador and everything that they say about us, and that we are in a civil war or in armed conflict. That's all true. We are in an armed conflict. That's what our president said. We don't see anything of that. We don't feel anything of that. I think in the States we saw that yesterday. There's more of an armed conflict here, but Ecuador is unfortunately put negatively in the news. But that's just certain areas of the country that have influence of these narco-terrorism, if you like, on the coastal area in Ecuador, where they need to transfer all those white powder stuff from Colombia and Peru, which are actually the creators of this coke. And then Ecuador is a transit country, and it transits through the coastal area out by boats. So if you're in the Andes, or if you're in the Amazon, or if you're in Galapagos, you will not see anything of it. If you come here to the airport, there's no army, there's no extra police forces, there's nothing else than just the regular security of an airport. So it's very important for you to understand that Ecuador is completely open. Everything is running as normal, and there's some areas, as in every single country, that you should avoid at the moment. And we know those areas where you should not go to, and we will not take your guests to there. So that's just a little side talk about the current situation. So Guayaquil, actually a very nice town with this hill here where you can walk up 444 steps towards this lighthouse, beautiful view over this river. This is the rivers, not the sea. And then you have a malecon, which is also super safe to walk around. So there's some areas in this city as well, which are just good to go to. And then we have the haciendas. For instance, here on the coastal areas, you have the banana plantations, we have the cacao plantations, we have the shrimp plantations, or the shrimp pools, I have to say. And that's all part of Ecuador, and places to see and to visit and to understand how a bar of chocolate is actually being made. Then if you have clients interested in our coastal area is pristine. So we have deserted beaches. We do not have, like a Cancun, high-rise, all-inclusive buildings. That's not done here. Here you have the smaller local hotels, and then these beaches where you will be kind of by yourself. Just quickly, some hotels that we have here, and this is the Hacienda La Danesa, which is just an hour and a quarter out of Guayaquil. Really beautiful. This is one of those places on the beach. It really looks nice. It is nice, and you really feel that you're on a tropical setting. Now, most people do not go to the beach on mainland Ecuador. They actually fly out to the Galapagos Islands. My personal objective in life is to sell Ecuador as a mainland and Galapagos as a separate destination. It's going to be hard, I know. People want to go to Galapagos, and it's beautiful, so they should be going to Galapagos, but don't leave Ecuador aside. Or if you think, well, why go to Ecuador if I don't have the budget to go to Galapagos? Wrong. Go to Ecuador, and whenever you have that budget to go to Galapagos, do Galapagos on a second trip. But Ecuador mainland and Ecuador continental, as we call it, deserves to be seen as a standalone tourism appealing destination. Okay, so to Galapagos, we have Quito and Guayaquil with flights directly to Galapagos. You have to fly to Galapagos. You cannot take a boat to Galapagos. So out of Ecuador, you have these two airports, and most of the flights from Quito actually go to Guayaquil first and then continue to Galapagos. It's an hour-and-a-half flight to Galapagos. There are two airports in Galapagos. You have Baltra Airport and San Cristobal Airport. And then actually, for internal flights between the islands, you have a third airport here on Isabela. they do not connect with the mainland, though. So the way to visit Galapagos is either by the new way of island hopping or hotel-based tour program. So you stay actually in either of the inhabited islands, and then you do day excursions around these places, or you have the naturalist boat trips. And I always like to say boat trips. I don't use the word cruise because people think of large carnival cruises with 3,000 plus people on it. That's not what Galapagos is about. Galapagos is a naturalist boat trip. Small yachts, 16 passengers, 8 cabins. That's what 80% of the boats look like in Galapagos. And then those boats go up to maximum 100 passengers. That's it. There's no boat allowed with more than 100 passengers. And then you have the liveaboard. So this is for those who really like to dive. So they take you out for a whole week cruising, well, boating in the Darwin and Wolf area, totally to the north of the islands. And the only thing you're going to do is dive for the hardcore divers around us. So how to connect if you want to do an island hop program? You have these little guys here, which are very tiny airplanes, some for 4, 6, maximum up to 8 passengers, and they take you from one island to the other, and there are 3 airports. So actually, if you have clients who really do not want to touch water in Galapagos, it is possible. And otherwise, we do it with these kind of ferries or smaller boats. This is like a public transport. So they take you from one place to another. Usually it's just 2 hours. Wherever you go to, it's a 2-hour journey. It's almost open sea, if you see. So it's pretty rocky, and they just go for it. So it's like a local transport. If you want to do it on a private ferry like this one, you pay a little extra, well, a lot extra, and you actually have a private boat for yourself which can actually go a little less fast, and if you get seasick, which is quite common on these stretches, they can also lower their speed, etc. So it's either these ferries, private ferries, or the small airplanes to go from one island to the other. And then we actually call it the island hop programs because in Galapagos you have to move. The islands are not going to move around you. You have to move around the islands, and all the animals that are known in Galapagos, they're not on one island, they're everywhere. So you have to move and see that wildlife in all the different islands. Every island and islet has a different microclimate, and animals are there where they feel happy. So it's not that they just are everywhere. It's not that you get to the main island in Galapagos and you can say, well, I've seen it, I've been to Galapagos. No, you have to move around. So you have our main kind of central island is Santa Cruz. That's where you have the airport of 𝗏𝗏 in the north, and you go down the island, which is all volcanic. Everything is volcanic here. So you have to go up, get into the highlands, and then down again. That's how it works. So here you have Santa Cruz, and this is yes, Hugo. This is actually a year-round destination. So Ecuador and Galapagos, as we are on the equator, is a year-round destination. We do have a calendar of events. If you just want to see like the hatching or or whatever event that's going on with the animal life, or if you want to see the albatross on Española, or if you want to see something of the occurrences that happened, then we have that calendar of events to see if you plan a trip around that event. But then it's a year-round destination. You have some colder seasons, some warmer seasons, but then again, Galapagos has its wildlife because of the colder currents, because the colder currents bring all the food in, and that's what the animals need. So Galapagos hopefully will not warm up, hopefully will not be one of these nice hot destinations as you'll have in the Caribbean. Galapagos is meant to be colder, so also the currents need to be colder. So it's what you come for is to see the wildlife, not to sunbathe in the end. Let me admittedly, there we go. So you have this main island. This is where everybody kind of starts a trip in. So from Santa Cruz, you have several options to do within this island. So you have the giant tortoises, which is what Galapagos is famous for. And also out of here, you can do the daily visits to, for instance, Bartolomé with this iconic pinnacle rock, as it's called. You'll see different wildlife of the Galapagos, the different plant species as well, the flora and the fauna, of course. So it's really is a very nice way to see and explore Galapagos on a less militarized way. Let's keep it that way. You're free. You can actually plan more freedom in your trip. Like you can do a day nothing. We can do just a half day excursion. You can not add your dinners and you just walk into the city and find a nice little restaurant yourself. So you can actually do things more freely than on a boat trip. If you're on one of those cruises, you're stuck on the cruises and you have to do whatever that cruise does. So there was another question that we can actually combine the two. And yes, that's a very good way to visit the Galapagos. For instance, have a shorter cruise, 4 or 5 nights cruising, and then stay for another 3 or 4 nights, for instance, on one of the islands or to 2 islands, depending on the itinerary that you had with the boat. And I'll come back to those itineraries later on. So the properties to stay at, you have this one, which is the 𝗶𝘀𝗀 Lodge. The 𝗶𝗀𝗀 Lodge is the most expensive place in Galapagos, even more expensive than the boat trips. We have the Finch Bay, which is a fantastic hotel also for families. It's the only hotel that has like a little beach in front. It's close to the town. You just need a water taxi to get there. You have the safari camp. So this is like in the highlands. Tented camps, completely different experience than staying in town. We have private villas with butler services as well, and other places around. So there's really something for everybody. And then from Santa Cruz, we can go on a 2-hour ferry or in a short flight to Puerto Villamil. So this is the Isabela. This is the largest island of the archipelago. And they have their inhabited part, Puerto Villamil, where you can also stay easily 3 nights and do some snorkeling. And I say snorkeling as well because half of wildlife in Galapagos is under the water. So it's not that you'll see everything by walking over the islands. You really need to start and do some courses on snorkeling when you get to Galapagos and get that snorkel out and get wet and see whatever wildlife or life is under the water. So then we have these hikes to this crater. This is huge crater here, and that's why you will be explained about how Galapagos is created. And you have these places that you actually have a very nice view over the different sharks that we have in Galapagos. They come and rest here in this area of Galapagos. Properties here, nice lodge, which is also a tented camp, a very other style of hotel as well. And then we have this 3rd inhabited island. So there are actually 4 inhabited islands, of where 3 have actually some towns, real towns. And this is San Cristobal. So from San Cristobal, you can actually do a day excursion to Española. And Española is interesting because Española is the only island where you will be able to see the albatross. So that's, if you go for the albatross, this is the only way to go and see it on an island hop program. But then besides that, you have all these other nice places in San Cristobal to also enjoy. And the 4th island actually is Floriana, which is very basic. So depending on how your clients would like to travel, we can take them also for 2 nights to an island called Floriana, where you have nothing else than just your little hotel, or so to say. This is the hotel in San Cristobal. And then we get to the boats. So here we have the different cruises. Every single boat has a 15-day itinerary. So if you want to do Galapagos completely, you have to take 2 weeks off and take a complete entire 2-week boat trip, and you've seen Galapagos and you've mastered Galapagos. Now, unfortunately, not everybody has 15 days. So these 15 days are cut into pieces by the boat. So every single yacht operator or owner have cut their itineraries into pieces. And some have done that in a week and another week. Another one has done a 4-day, a 5-day, and a 7-day. Some has a 5-nighter, 6-nighter, and an 8-nighter. It all depends. It's like a whole shampoos on different itineraries in Galapagos, and that really confuses quite a bit. And that's why we're here for. So we're here to help you out to understand how Galapagos works, and we'll find those perfect matches between your client's expectations and desires and the Galapagos boat or itinerary that they need to go on to see everything they want. So if you take an 8-day route, it's like the half. If you do a 5-day route, which is done very often, you see, for instance, just this. And these are just like examples, right? Because every itinerary is different. And then you have 3-night programs. So some boats do 3-night trips, and that's only to be done in our recommendation when you combine it with an island hub program or like a hotel-based program, or if you're on an incentive and your company sends you for free to Galapagos and they just give you this time. So for incentives, it's a fantastic way to go to the Galapagos. If you're on a holiday, don't go 3 nights to the Galapagos. Here we have some images of boats. So you have like these catamarans, we have trimarans, you have the catamarans with the private balconies, the suites. It's really can get very nice and luxury. The motor yachts with like the steel hulls. We also have so most of the boats nowadays are fiber. So depending also on who's on those boats, you really want to make sure that their safety is taken into account. So we know which boat actually has a marine steel hull or whether it's a fiber glass hull, and there's of course a small difference in safety there. So here, for instance, we have the Passion, and then you have these larger vessels for 100 passengers, like the 𝘀𝗲𝗂𝗋ₐ, you have the Celebrity Cruises, you now have the 𝘀𝗲𝗀𝗋 as well. They have the larger vessels in hands. There's just one other vessel that's still in local hands that we can actually book for you, which is a fantastic option. It's called the Legend, just in case. And then as Pure, as I said, we want your clients to understand what the destination is about that they have chosen. So we have those moments to connect the traveler with the local community, with the nature, with the gastronomy, to make that click. And that's very important, to create those new ambassadors for us as a country that go back home and really talk just nothing but positive things about Ecuador. So it's all different moments that they can do. And of course, family travel, as I've said several times, Ecuador is probably the best destination for a good family or multi-gen trip, but also for the wellness, spiritual moments that people are looking for. That's a bit about Ecuador and the Galapagos. There's a little video here. I'll not play that because it just takes quite a bit of time, but it's on our website and you're welcome to find it under the marketing collaterals. There are some Pure videos, and you're welcome to check out the Ecuador video, which is just a 6-minute video, and you'll have all these images, but in moving in moving moments. Let me see if there has been any question. I did the mix, the Galapagos. There we go. It's anybody has a question for me here? Maybe is everything been explained correctly? Would you like me to go in depth in something else? An average cost of a 7-day boat trip depends on the boat, Hugo. We have some very cheap boats that go for, let's say, $2,000 a week, and then you go all the way up to $7,000-8,000 a week per person. So it all depends on what the client wants, and everybody will see the same. It's not if you pay more, you see more. It's if you pay more, you have more comfort on the boat, you get some better food, and you have more space. Then the itineraries or whatever you will see, it's going to be exactly the same. So it's truly depending on how clients are accustomed to travel. How many nights would you typically recommend in Quito? At least 2, and I'd say 3 to do something else, as we explained, around Quito. Go to the 𝘀𝗶𝘁𝗂𝗃, go to the cloud forest, do something else. So I'd say if we can create, like for instance, a week in Galapagos and 4 days or 5 days in Ecuador mainland, that's like a perfect combination. And people will actually be impressed by what Ecuador is about, because they don't have any ideas of what to expect when you say Ecuador mainland or Ecuador. They know when you say Galapagos. They know if you say Peru, they say Machu Picchu. But if you say Ecuador, there's nothing that pops up in your mind and let's say, hey, wait a minute, Quito, 𝘀𝗶𝘁𝗂𝗃. No. So they actually will be mind blown by what they will see and what they will experience during those few days that they'll have with us here in mainland Ecuador, and we'll make sure that we'll blow their mind. So yes, for sure. About 4 days. If more, a little more. Yes, please. Anybody else? If there's no more questions, I'll stop presenting. And then I just wish you everybody a very nice afternoon on this, what is it, Monday? It's Monday. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me. And I hope I've been able to get Ecuador a little bit more on your radar. And please, any support you need, reach out. We have a whole team here ready to send you anything you need on marketing, on multimedia, on proposals, everything. We can also jump with you on a call with your clients if you don't feel totally confident yourself as your local partner, for instance. This is a partnership, and we're here to support you.